I'd like to call to order a special work session meeting for the Grand Haven City Council of November 15th, 2021. This meeting is called to order. The first order of business is for the finance director of the city, Amy Bessinger, to come forward and give us a briefing on ARPA and CSLRF funding. Could you do that, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Amy Bessinger, Finance Director, Treasurer for the city. I apologize, I'm getting a little cough going tonight, but please bear with me. So I wanted to give you a brief overview of the ARPA CSLRF funding, and I'll explain what those acronyms are here. The ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 that was provided. Through that, units of government are receiving coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. So the funding passes through the state of Michigan for non-entitlement units, such as the city of Grand Haven. So for the city of Grand Haven, we're expected to receive just over $1.15 million. So we already received our first installment in September of this year, approximately $578,000. We'll receive our second installment in approximately September of 2022. So we'll receive that in two tranches, as they called it with the state. It's for a period beginning March 3rd of 2021 that we can incur expenses, and we must obligate those funds by December 31st of 2024 and expense those funds by December of 2026. So we do have a lot of time to decide if we want to spend it on a project or what type of activity that can go for. I do want to make a note that if it's something that we do want to cover this fiscal year, we must incur and expense that by June 30 of 2022. So it has to be within the current fiscal year. We can't go back a fiscal year for those funds. So I'll talk briefly about some allowable uses, then I'll get into some more detail on each of these as I go forward. So the first allowable use is to respond to public health emergency or its negative impacts. The second allowable use could be provide premium pay for essential workers within certain caps that are provided. A third use is going to be provide governmental services to the extent of lost revenue. So there's a lost revenue calculator that was provided that I worked with a CPA firm to help me with those numbers and make sure that we are allowed to use that. So our full allotment that we're getting of just over the 1.1 million we can use for lost revenue. Just to make a note, as I'll touch on more as I go forward. And then for number 4, we can make necessary improvements and investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. There are prohibited uses, however. One of those is pension contributions, additional contributions. We cannot replenish rainy day reserve funds with that money specifically. We can't use it for legal settlements or for current outstanding debt obligations. So I wanted to get a little bit more detail into each of the allowable uses. Allowable use number 1 is, sorry, go back to my notes here. It's for responding to public health emergencies and the negative impacts. So there's quite a few categories here containing mitigating COVID, PPE purchases, programs and things of that sort. Do want to make a note that we did apply for some FEMA funding for PPE and some other purchases of that sort along those lines. Public safety received a grant. We should be receiving those funds shortly. The city applied for it. We haven't received the funds yet, but it's under review. A couple of the items don't necessarily pertain to services we currently provide, such as behavioral health care needs, payroll and benefits for public health and public safety. So to determine that, we need to announce that public safety's time was committed primarily to the COVID-19 impact. So that's a little bit hard for us to prove, in that regard, because they respond to a lot of different activities within the city. It could also go towards the impacted industries, tourism, travel, hospitality, things of that sort, rebuilding public sector capacities, small business support, and then hardest hit communities being disproportionately impacted communities. For the small business support, I did want to make a note that our Economic Development Corporation Board this past year did provide small business COVID loans in the amount of $5,000 at a 5-year no interest rate term. We provided those to 7 different businesses. So to touch on number 2 was to allow for premium payments to essential workers. So we have to qualify that the eligible workers were needed to maintain continuity of operations for critical infrastructure to the city. So there's a few different examples of different sectors there that is allowed under this ruling. Did want to make a note here also that we did receive some CARES funding in this past fiscal year for first responder hazard pay premiums that we did pay out as well.
Amy, can I ask a question?
Surely.
How do you pay things like that out? I mean, is there an application process?
Yes, there was. Yep. So the program was rolled out through the CARES funding, which is Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security. A lot of acronyms during this past year with different fundings and acts. But the funding was rolled out through the Fed, came through the state of Michigan. There's an application that we had to apply for and provide backup documentation information. We were then received those funds from the state and were able to pay the workers.
And did it go to people who work here or who
It went to
live
public
here?
safety.
To public safety?
Yes, so
All right.
public safety employees being
As
essential
first
workers
responders.
as first
Yep.
responders,
Okay.
yes. Yep, they received a $1,000 premium pay from that program. We paid out $38,000 that we received.
Each person in public safety?
We had 38 employees at public safety, yep. So this is just a little bit more about the premium payments eligible under this plan here with ARPA funding, up to a certain dollar amount. They can't exceed a certain dollar amount and things of that sort. So those are all things that we would need to take into consideration and look at if that's something that we needed to entertain. Talking a little bit about use number 3 for revenue loss, I had mentioned that I had used a CPA firm. The Government Finance Officers Association released a calculator for all states to use to calculate lost revenue. So although it sounds like it could be fairly easy to calculate that, it really wasn't. There was a lot that went into that. So I used a firm to help me decide that I used all the appropriate funds, all the appropriate lines. Some things were excluded, make sure I didn't use those items and things of that sort. So with that said, they did confirm that the allotment that we are receiving, we can use for government services due to lost revenue, the full 1.1 million. We can use it for PAYGO capital, such as investment in infrastructure like roads. We can use it for health services. We can use it for parks. We can use it for payroll, for public safety, and things of that sort. So it's really broad discretion in how we use those funds. It does then again exclude, though, the issuance of debt, paying down the debt obligations, just putting that money straight into the reserve without having eligible expenses under that governmental service provide, and then paying any settlements or judgments. And then use number 4 is investment in infrastructure. So this is specific to water, sewer, or broadband, however. For a water or sewer project to be eligible, it must fall within the state revolving fund guidelines for both sewer and water. So there's a lot of different guidelines that we would need to review and look into for those types of things. And then also for broadband. I do know that the county has sent out surveys recently regarding broadband and providing that. So that's something that they're looking at. I believe the county received approximately $56 million that they're allocating and going through a full review process of, and this is one of those items as well. Before I provided that, I just wanted to make a couple notes that the state has received ARPA funding as well, but it has not included in this year's budget that they just passed. So it's going to be supplemental funding that they're going to have throughout the next year, perhaps the end of this year yet, next year, calendar year. So they're going to release that as they go. The state hasn't decided how those funds will be spent. So hoping that we can maybe leverage some of those funds with some projects that we want to use. If they're putting it into infrastructure, is it going to be for streets, and what types of projects would be eligible with the state supplemental funding that may be coming out? And then also with the county funding, perhaps we may be able to leverage any funding there that the county has to match with our projects, or be a collaborative effort between different communities within the county area to hopefully maximize those funds.
Let me stop you for one more minute. It sounded like investment in infrastructure is pretty clearly covered, specific infrastructure, but if you conclude that the lost revenue system works and that we can show sufficient lost revenue for all of the money, is that true?
Yes, yep, that's
Then-
what the calculator
Then
shows.
that gives you the most flexibility in how we spend it, is that?
It does,
Is that
yes.
accurate? All right,
It gives
thank
us a
you.
lot of broad discretion at that point. Yep, that's true.
Amy, one other thing, sorry. Has the county or the state come up with any allocation, any, criteria yet on how they're gonna allocate their money? Nothing?
No, they haven't yet. So I wanted to point, so a good point to make towards that is that we don't have to spend this money immediately. We have this money. We can wait for state and the county to, follow and see what they're doing with theirs. We can find a project of our own to do, but there's not an immediate need to spend it. We don't have to obligate it until December of '24. So that gives us some good news that we can, take a step and take a breath and take a look at all the programs that are eligible under this spending, what our area is doing regarding that, if we want a collaborative approach or work with other units. So that does allow us flexibility as well with the timing, which is really great.
Okay.
I
Anything
just
else?
wanted to provide a website with some links there, so you have that
Perfect.
in your packet.
Yep.
The FAQs were just updated today, I noticed. I jumped on the website this evening. They were just updated, so I haven't read through those changes yet, but do know that they've made some changes and updates to questions that they had.
So you're working with departments within the city to come up with I'll call it a wish list for lack of a better word. I'm guessing you don't have a shortage of proponents?
We don't have a shortage of need, that's for sure. There's a lot that we could do with this funding. We haven't sat with department heads specifically to put a list together just for this funding. Looking for council direction on where we'd like to go next. I know Councilmember Cummins had recognized at an earlier meeting that he'd be interested in talking with staff about maybe how to go forward with that. If that's something that you would like to do, is to set up a couple council members to sit with staff and go with the direction, or provide at least, next steps on where we would like to go.
Yeah, I
That's
think,
what we're
I
looking
think
for.
that's a great idea. Is there anybody here who wants to be in that mix? Ryan, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have just a couple questions, and just because you're the expert on this, Amy, and I don't want to mix up our funds and grants, but would it be possible, because you've done a great job of identifying all the possible uses and helping to coach us where we might want to stick around, where it would be easier to line up. So those use cases coming in from the departments, there are other grants that we can apply for right now that relate to the Michigan Clean Water Act, some of the stuff that's applies to the Michigan Lead and Copper Rule, and I'm kind of wondering, is there a way we can kind of take, the areas that you think we should be dividing it up, the suggestions, but also finding out if there are other sources for those projects so that, we might cover our bases the best? I don't
Yeah.
know if that makes any sense to you.
It does, I understand, yes. I think that's a great idea. So we are looking at other funding sources that are out there with just coming up with the infrastructure bill that's coming out, and what does that cover, and how is that going to be affecting the city and what we're eligible for. Pat is looking at some other funding and things of that sort for different projects. So definitely that's something we want to consider, is how we can maximize the dollars we have versus what is coming towards us
Right.
in other funding packages, is something we want to look closely with.
Okay, that's all I would ask, and that would be my input to your.
Anybody else? All right, if you can put Councilmember Cummins and you can put me down as interested in working on prioritizing funds.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time this evening.
Anything else?
Oh,
Amy,
okay.
got anything more for us?
That's all I have for right now. Thank
Right.
you.
Couple more million would be nice.
Bring us a couple more $1 million?
I wish I could.
Bring
I
us
wish I
more good
could.
news like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to adjourn the special work session. Do I need a motion,
Nope.
City Clerk? Nope, okay. This special work session is adjourned, and we will reconvene at 7:30 in normal City Council meeting mode. Thank you. City of Grand Haven City Council meeting of November 15th, 2021 is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lowe,
Here?
Cummins,
Here?
McLaughlin,
Here.
and McNally.
Here.
Fritz is excused.
Our invocation this evening will be delivered by Pastor Hans Bernard of the Robinson Baptist Church. Will you please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. Let us do so. O Almighty God, this evening, as this revealed body is predisposed to deliberate on the affairs of the people of this community, we are reminded of this significant declaration from the psalmist who said, "The Lord has established his throne in heaven, and his kingdom rules over all." Indeed, heavenly magistrate, you are superior, you are supreme, you are sovereign. Yet you have delegated to human beings, such as these forming this council, the prerogatives to legislate and to arbitrate for the fulfillment of your ultimate purpose. In that vein, do we beseech you, O Lord, to rescue this body from self-interest, from self-elevation, and from self-service. May they be shepherds of the people rather than their lords. Guard each one from trespasses, from violations, from transgressions, from disregards, and even from negligence. Grant them, O Lord, wisdom far beyond their years of experience, far beyond the span of their education. Use them as agents to bring peace in our midst and to nurture goodwill among us. And may thereby your blessing fall upon the people in our community and expand to our beloved nation, in that we might indeed be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for each one of the citizens of this nation. May your name be thus glorified and your honor be acclaimed. For Jesus' sake, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seated. All right, our first order of business today is a new appointment to a commission. But before we proceed to the new commission appointment, I'd like to say a few words of praise for the citizens who step forward to serve their city. We have an incredible wealth of experience, talent, education, historical knowledge, and deep affection for Grand Haven represented in our citizenry, and many have volunteered over the years to serve on city boards and commissions that promote community welfare and help shape policy decisions. I want to make a personal pitch tonight to all Grand Haven residents to consider whether they have an interest, an ability, and the time to help. For a variety of reasons, there's always turnover on boards and commissions. One of my principal duties as mayor is to select from among those interested candidates for each slot. At this time, we need volunteers to serve on the airport board, the cemetery board, the community center board, the compensation commission, the historic conservation district commission, the Main Street Downtown Development Authority, the musical fountain board, the Parks and Recreation Board, and the Planning Commission, and we need a student rep for the Human Relations Commission. If you've got a student in your household that you think would add dimension to our Human Relations Commission, please encourage him or her to apply. If you've got time and interest and you care about our beautiful city, please go to the city website where you can find an application to serve You can indicate the field or fields of interest that you have, and you can learn more about which opportunities are available. Now I'd like to proceed to this evening's new appointment. I am pleased to welcome Kristen Bunn, who is being appointed to a position on the Human Relations Commission for a term that expires June 30th, 2022. Kristen brings valuable experience to the HRC from her work in marketing and public relations with CareerLine Tech and from leadership roles with parent-teacher organizations at local schools, both of which demonstrate a laudable commitment to the city's youth. Could I get a motion to confirm her appointment?
So moved. Second?
So motion by McLaughlin, second by Cummins. Do we have any discussion?
No.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes.
And then Kristen should be here. Yep, there you are. Just meet you up at the podium. Okay. Really easy. Just raise your right hand. I'll read the oath. You say I do and sign and you're done.
Do that.
Okay. I, Kristen Bunn, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Human Relations Commission in and for the City of Grand Haven, County of Ottawa, and State of Michigan according to the best of my ability.
I do.
Okay, and then just sign right there.
I am delighted for the honoree and sad for the rest of us to recognize and salute Miss Linda Browand, Grand Haven City Clerk, who leaves us for well-deserved retirement after 31 years of service to our beautiful city. More than any elected official, career civil servants set the tone for local government. In many ways, the city clerk is the beating heart of City Hall, with enormous responsibilities and both personal and positional power that, frankly, she can choose to use for good or evil. I have not worked with Linda long in my mayoral role, but as a citizen, I've encountered her in multiple dealings over the years and found her unfailingly professional, knowledgeable, patient, helpful, and accurate. She has set a high bar for her successor, and she will be sorely missed. As with every hardworking professional, family support is essential to success. I would be remiss this evening if I failed to acknowledge Linda's husband, Vince Browand, and her mother, Nancy, both of whom are in attendance, along with it looked like maybe a gathering of grandchildren.
Actually, it's my sister, brother-in-law, and my two nephews and niece.
Oh, nice.
Great.
I understand that Linda is a gifted clarinetist and an avid camper. I hope her retirement is filled with family, music, and the great outdoors. Would you join me at the podium?
Sure. Know the feeling.
I'm going to read a resolution of appreciation for Linda Browand. Yep. I'm going to read again a resolution of appreciation for Linda Browand. And if we're photographing, we'll go with that. One thing too many. Whereas in July 1990, Linda Browand started as an account clerk cashier for the city of Grand Haven, and whereas on October 7th, 2021, over 31 years later, Linda submitted her retirement notice alerting the mayor that her official retirement date would be December 1st, 2021, and whereas in between those two dates, Linda was promoted to deputy clerk in 1991, then city clerk in 2008, and whereas Linda has administered 42 elections since being the city clerk, with 8 being presidential elections, And whereas she maintains the voter files of the current 9,349 registered voters in the city, and whereas Linda has attended and served as clerk for 324 council meetings, you deserve a medal just for that, I'm just going to say. And whereas Linda and her staff answer the main phone line and fielded questions or transferred calls for thousands and thousands of calls, and whereas in retirement, Linda will be able to devote more time to her hobbies, such as her love of traveling and exploring the United States in her camper. And whereas Linda is dedicated to her husband Vincent and the rest of her family, which includes 8 grandchildren, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Grand Haven formally recognizes the lifelong commitment of Linda Browand to ensuring proper record keeping for the city and election administration and promoting trustworthy service to the citizens of Grand Haven, and be it further resolved that Linda be forever granted the official title of Super Clerk, a term to be formally retired from the city parlance effective December 1st, 2021. Signed, Catherine M. McNally, Mayor. Congratulations.
Catherine? Yes. I think my husband's taking a picture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Absolutely. In here with them?
I got pictures
got
out
some?
by the way.
It's
so,
okay?
Yep,
Okay,
it's good.
all right.
I usually don't say anything, so I wrote it down because I'm not comfortable
Please.
speaking on my own. You've said a lot already of what I was going to say. Just want to thank you for this recognition, and I'm amazed on how quickly 31 plus years passes. And I've had the pleasure of working with some great people and for the community throughout my career. I'm excited I'll have more time with my family, especially my husband Vince and our 8 grandchildren, and my sister and brother-in-law, and my 2 nephews and niece. And I'll miss my coworkers that have been my work family for the past 31 plus years. And I just want to thank everyone again for all your support and friendship.
All right, I actually think we need an official motion to pass a resolution honoring our city clerk, Linda Browand. Could I have such a motion?
So moved?
Any seconds?
Second?
Any discussion? It's a motion by Lowe and second by Cummins. Any discussion?
No, I just, from my perspective, I didn't know Linda that well, and when we started on our campaign, she was unbelievable to give us the information that we need, and I really want to thank you for that.
I have great staff to help me too.
Yes, I want to thank you for your service, Linda. Having worked in a clerk's office for a couple of years in Muskegon, I got just a little taste of all the work that's involved. And the Michigan Municipal League had a magazine that came out, I think, a couple months ago that talked about how city clerks are really the glue of local government. There's so many different things that are going through clerks' offices to kind of keep city government rolling, and for you to be a part of so many elections and helping folks have a voice in electing their leaders at all levels of government is a pretty special thing, and you've done it so well. So thank you for so many years of service to the city. So forever grateful there.
Thank you, Linda. We're going to miss you, but actually we're not, because you're going to be back, right? Well, we'll see you.
I'm still going to live in town. I'll still be around.
Good.
And it's like I'm always available if anybody has any questions. And got a lot of stuff hopefully in my head that I can get out if you need it. So just give me a call.
That's perfect. All right, would the clerk please call the roll?
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. All right, I think we've reached the point in our agenda where, if possible, I'd like a motion to approve the consent and regular agendas.
I'd like to ask that item D be removed from the consent agenda and moved to new business.
second for that?
Second, I don't think,
We don't need to
You
second it?
don't need a
All right,
second.
can you just move it, can you move it to new business?
Mhm.
Anything else on the consent agenda? Any motion to approve the consent agenda?
so move.
Second?
Just for clear, so we're just
We're gonna
approving
move, we're gonna move it to new business.
right, and we're just approving the consent regular agendas, not the actual consent yet. We're just setting the
Correct.
agenda for tonight.
Yes.
Correct, okay. Yep, I'll second that.
The other thing too is the, resolution recognizing my retirement was on there too, so I'll just take that off too. and move
Okay,
it.
sorry.
That's okay, that's fine.
It works.
Okay, we have a motion by McLaughlin and second by Cummins. Would you please call the roll?
Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes,
Lowe,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. All right, at this time, we have one of two opportunities, it's a call to the audience, one of two opportunities for audience members to bring matters before City Council that they think are appropriate. Members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Are there any members of the audience who'd care to speak?
Good evening, John Whitelaw, 99 Poplar Ridge. I just want to briefly congratulate the new board and mention that using fear and time constraints in the past may have been a successful way to get to a yes vote. I'm encouraged that this board will invest their time to be open, to involve, listen, and consider alternatives to implement solutions representing the best interest of the citizens of Grand Haven. Thank you very, very much, all of you.
Thank you very much.
John?
Any other members?
My name is Ron Valerius, and I live at 5907 Leisure South. I live in Kentwood. I have read an article in the Grand Rapids Press about affordable housing and what Grand Haven is doing. I'm encouraged by this. And what I'd like to share, I happen to be a real estate agent for 43 years, and what people may or may not be aware of currently, and I'm speaking more of the Grand Rapids market than Grand Haven, but this will affect you. If we have a listing in Grand Rapids for $200,000, for a first-time home buyer trying to purchase, it's almost impossible. There are 30 offers on a house, and that $200,000 home will sell for $250,000, and the buyers are guaranteeing $50,000 in cash if the home does not appraise. Prices are climbing too quickly. Also, what happens in Grand Rapids, and I have lived in Grand Haven, is that any new construction that's happening are all homes 300 plus. There's nothing being built for the first-time buyer. What can we learn in 2008 that we've never learned before? And that is real estate values do not always go up. In 2008, let me remind you, in the Grand Rapids market, values went down by 30%. So if you owned a $200,000 home, that would equal $60,000, net value of $140,000. There are a lot of people that are concerned about traffic. They're concerned about their own properties that the value will decline. We need to think outside the box. The day is coming, in my professional opinion, the next real estate crisis will be affordable housing. If that first-time buyer cannot buy that first home, you lose the whole effect of the domino going up. So if the 200 can't buy, so that seller can't buy the 300, the 300 can't build the $500,000. It is crucial, and I'm proud to read what I've read in the Grand Rapids Press, that you've taken a position. Because if you don't, your police officers, your nurses, your teachers will not be able to move into your community. And this is extremely important. And for those that have very expensive homes thinking that they're going to lose value, you're mistaken. Because if you don't support affordable housing, you in return will lose value in your own property. Because it's all driven by supply and demand, and we can see what's happening today. There is no supply and a great demand, and push the prices way up. Just the opposite can happen. I don't think we're too far away. If no one's buying, the day will come when there's a great supply and there's no demand, and the buyer on the bottom, that first-time home buyer, is not able to buy. And I am just thankful for Grand Haven, because there's many other cities, townships, that are not addressing the issue of affordable housing, and I appreciate that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ron, I didn't catch your last name.
Hilarious.
Can you spell it for us, please?
V as in Victor, I-L-L-E-R-I-U-S.
Thank you very much.
My name's Lori View. I live at 201 Woodlawn in Grand Haven, and I disagree with the whole affordable housing the way you're thinking it is. That people, that nurses and teachers and police officers can't live in this community. They live in this community. My uncles are all retired police officers. My dad's a retired DNR officer. My son's a plumber. I have friends that are teachers. They all live in Grand Haven. I think I'm not opposed to affordable housing, but I think what we're doing is crazy. We're taking established neighborhoods and we're destroying them. We have tons of land in Grand Haven. People don't have to live right in the city proper to have affordable housing. And I'm telling you, if you guys vote this through, what's happening is developers are buying it up and they're charging through the roof on property, because I can tell you, I just purchased the property right next door to mine, me and my neighbor did, for $240,000 to keep somebody from building on it. And that's not affordable. $240,000 piece of property. And it's not even a buildable piece of property. It's a piece of crap, if you go look at it. So, you know, and you look at Lake and Williams, somebody bought that, the Denslows, and it's a huge house that's going in there. That's not affordable. They paid $380 and they leveled the house. Call that affordable? No. The townhouses on Howard and First or whatever it is, they're gonna be like $1 million. That's not affordable. We voted in the 144 apartments or condos downtown. Those aren't affordable. So tell me, what is affordable in the part that you guys voted in previously? Other than that, the one that has the 15 lots that are already taken. So I just think it needs to be relooked at. I'm not opposed to affordable housing whatsoever, but I just think taking established areas in Grand Haven and splitting lots and multifamily housing is not the way to do it. Thank you,
ma'am.
I'm Steve Miller from 1540 Penware. And first of all, I want to thank the gentleman for coming here. I agree with you. I think this is a national problem. It's not Grand Haven's responsibility alone. But I think that communities that neglect it are going to rue the day eventually, because it just upsets the whole social ecology of a community if you lose that layered system of the wealthy and the less wealthy and the starters and all that. The main point that I just wanted to address tonight is I know that the Planning Commission is going to turn over some stuff to you that for the last 6 months or so, they've been looking at some tweaking on the zoning. And the fear, basically, if I can simplify it, that I feel is that, like a lot of communities across the country, I feel, I'm very afraid that Grand Haven is going to cling very too tightly to outmoded zoning approaches. I'm very proud, I was pleasantly surprised that the people in Grand Haven stood up and said, you know, that the approach to generating electricity in Grand Haven was outmoded and it needed to be upgraded and it needed to address the modern concerns that we have, like sustainability. And the zoning that we have right now, from my research, is telling me, you know, it's very much old school, what I call 1980s style zoning. And there's been a huge amount of research and a huge amount of case studies and changes that have happened in Michigan and all across the country to move away from that to things that help communities become more sustainable, more walkable, more affordable, and a higher quality of life for the whole community. And I contacted the Groundwork Center for Resilience in Traverse City. They're doing a lot of this type of work. They've got a huge staff. I have to get back into my email, but I'm conversing with them. I told them that people here are afraid of predatory demolition, and I don't want that to happen. I'm thrilled that we are preserving the diesel plant. I was afraid that that was going to get torn down. I think we've got beautiful housing stock here, and I don't want any of the beautiful homes that are here to be pointlessly or predatorily torn down. And I think that we should have targeted rules to prevent that. But I also think that we need to look into ways to allow the community and individual homeowners to do things like accessory dwelling units, to the possibility of turning single-family homes into two-family homes in an appropriate manner, things like that. Thank you.
All right, I think we've finished our work session, so we don't need continuation. We'll move on. Okay. We need a motion to approve an introductory resolution to amend the Grand Haven zoning ordinance to adjust residential density, lot area, and lot width in certain zoning districts.
Have that on the agenda.
So move.
Mayor, I think we're, one more step before that,
Oh,
will
I
be,
missed something, Ryan?
yeah, just approval of the consent agenda minus item D. That'll be our next item. Yeah, I see how, on the agenda, it's a little confusing. There's not a number next to it, so maybe something to catch next time for staff, but.
All right, we're gonna back up, and we're going to item, on the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second?
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Cummins.
I will note, I guess Linda, I know is over there looking. Typically, the clerk would read out loud what the consent agenda items are. And Linda can advise if that's a requirement or.
I don't think it's a requirement, but I think it's helpful for people to know what's on
But it might be a
it.
good idea.
Yep.
Would you do that, please, Linda?
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Go back here. Oops. Sorry, I gotta get back to where I was. Okay. On the consent agenda, we have a resolution to approve the minutes for the special work session and regular meeting of November 1st and the organizational meeting of November 8th, 2021, and special joint council Duncan Park meeting and closed session minutes of October 19th, 2021. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $671,845.71. Approve the Chamber's Grand Haven Art Festival beginning Friday, June 24th from 2 o'clock p.m. to 5 o'clock p.m., Saturday, June 25th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, June 26, 2022 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And to approve the submission of a 2022 Michigan Lighthouse Assistance Program grant to complete concrete restoration and painting work around the south entrance light in the amount of $60,000 with a $76,409 match to be reimbursed by the Grand Haven Lighthouse Conservancy Fund held at the Grand Haven Community Center, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
Okay, if you're reading your agendas in the audience, we've removed item D and moved that to new business. So with the consent agenda as read, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Cummins. Will the clerk call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. Okay, now we're at the, needing a motion to approve an introductory resolution to amend the Grand Haven zoning ordinance to adjust residential density, lot area, and lot width in certain zoning districts.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Jennifer, are you going to come up and present?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Howland, Community Development Manager. I'm bringing forward today proposed text amendments from the Planning Commission related to the zoning ordinance. Back in January, several changes were made to the zoning ordinance in many of our districts. And since then, the City Council passed a moratorium in response to some concerns that perhaps we had gone a little too far with the changes to the zoning. So there's a 6-month moratorium in place right now on new lot splits in certain districts and on new 2-family dwellings in certain districts. So the Planning Commission has been working on some adjustments based on those concerns, and we've gone back through the research and looked at our patterns of development and listened to the community, and tonight we're proposing a few adjustments. First of all, we are looking to take out 2-family dwellings from the low-density residential district. There are no 2-family dwellings right now in that district. It's 100% single-family. So adjusting that back to the pre-January ordinance where 2-family was prohibited is appropriate. It doesn't cause any nonconformities. We're also looking to roll back the lot width and lot area decrease that was amended in January in the moderate density residential district, the office service district, and the multifamily district. It was 45 feet and 5,900 square foot minimums. We adjusted it to 44 feet and 5,800. The intent there was to allow some splitting of property. So when you take what in some plats originally were 66-foot wide lots, you could take 2 of them and split them into 3 if the minimum width was 44 feet. So back in 2007, it was intentionally set at 45 feet to not allow that kind of splitting. It was one option we considered as one of the incremental changes to allow some increase in density, but we have seen a couple projects come forward that have had some unintended consequences. Some homes have been proposed to be demolished that are perfectly decent homes, at least from the outside, and it could, over time, change the character of some of our neighborhoods. So we're proposing to roll back on that. A few of the districts, we are looking to keep them as we've adjusted in January, because the patterns of development in those districts are consistent with today's regulations. So the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of that at their public hearing last week. We heard from several community members. So tonight we're asking for your support of that proposal.
Discussion?
As someone who just left the Planning Commission, I know how hard everyone worked, on this. We had a lot of comments from the public. I think this is appropriate. I think we should move forward on this. There may be other things that we should look at, to be very honest with you, as we move forward. There's a master plan review coming up. And I think that we should all, take a hard look at that as we move forward.
Karen? Yeah, Jennifer, I just have a couple questions. If I understand what you said and what I read, we have, because the zoning districts are different than the neighborhoods, it's sometimes confusing to a lot of people, including me. So I'm looking at the maps, and what this essentially does is, what the Planning Commission and you are recommending on this rollback is it restores it to the pre-January situation in the southwest neighborhood, for example. Is that correct for the most part? I know there's Dune Residential and LDR right there, but.
Right, there are, in the southwestern part of the city and the southeastern part, it's primarily LDR, low-density residential. It was formerly called SFR, single family.
Okay. But these changes roll back to what you were pre-January in terms of divided parcels and multi-unit.
In the affected districts, so going back to the allowable uses in low density, just single family and a couple other supporting single family uses. So the pre-January for low density, and then going back to the lot size and area in the 3 districts, moderate density, multifamily, and office service. So going back to the pre-January on those for the sizes.
Okay.
There would be some districts so that have been changed since January that we're proposing to keep as is at this time.
Okay, and were there any changes in the lot size for LDR?
No.
There weren't any. So the only thing that you had to roll back was the multi-unit, correct?
That district, yes.
Okay.
You good, Karen?
I am, and I would just say I agree. I think these are 2 very important changes, very critical changes that we heard the outcry from people that were impacted by that. And so I thank you and the Planning Commission for going back and reconsidering all of that. And I agree with Kevin, there may be some other tweaks along the way. I think this is a good start, though, to adjusting to what our neighborhoods need and want. Thanks.
Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with Karen and Kevin. I thank you to the Planning Commission, but I also agree that there may be some further tweaks. We have a master plan process that's coming, but when we made these initial changes, maybe they were too broad of a brush, and so we've realized that we need to be maybe a little more prescriptive with some of the changes that were made, and I think the Planning Commission has taken a good look at this and is bringing some good recommendations to kind of help us work towards that right balance with where the community's at this point. It's ebbed and flowed over the years. We've had 2 families and multifamilies in certain districts, and we've rolled that back, and we've had certain sizes, and then we've gotten smaller, and so it's ebbed and flowed. And I think as we have this master plan discussion, that conversation is going to certainly continue. Just a couple points on affordable housing, and I mentioned this a couple meetings ago, but and the gentleman that spoke tonight kind of alluded to it, that it's not that the new home that is maybe built or the new 2-family dwelling even is necessarily going to be what somebody would consider affordable. Affordable housing involves having housing at a variety of price points to make it work, and so that person that's in that more affordable home that can afford something more, if they don't have the next level to go to, then they stay in that home. If they go to that next level of home that they can afford and are ready for, then that person that's ready for that home that they're in that is more affordable can move into that one. And so that's how you kind of move through the process, and you have to address the supply and demand at the various price points that there are. And when we look at our neighborhoods, I think we're learning some lessons over time with the issues with single-family zoning. It's not as simple as just saying, well, Grand Haven Township or others have more land, because sprawl is expensive. It's expensive to run infrastructure out to that new land. It's expensive and that's not as sustainable as taking the infrastructure that you've already built out, for higher populations, which Grand Haven had a much higher population not too long ago. We actually have a lower population than we did 20 years ago. So we've had more people in this community than we actually have now, but the neighborhoods where it makes sense, we want a variety of housing types. You know, if I'm somebody that lives in a single-family home, and say for example, I divorce, or a spouse passes away, or I need to age in place somewhere. If there's not another type of housing maybe that works better for that person, maybe it's a smaller unit, maybe it's a two-family dwelling, and it's only single-family that maybe they can't maintain, or it's too large for them, then they get pushed out of their neighborhoods, and that's not equitable either, to say, hey, nope, you have to leave your neighborhood that you have an identity with and that you care about and what is important to you. If you have a variety of price points and different types of housing within a neighborhood, then folks are able to maintain that sense of neighborhood long term, and I think that's more equitable. So it's finding the right balance. I appreciate the work that the Planning Commission has done. I think these changes are reasonable, are helping us move towards that balance, and it'll continue to be a work in progress. So thank you.
Your Honor, I just wanted to make one more comment, if that's okay. Just to address the, it's less about what you're proposing here, but just to address some of the other issues. There was an excellent article, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, but it talked to some of the points that we're talking about first-time buyers for homes in towns competing with developers who are creating second residences, they're not for, and they're really just edging out that first-time buyer. Sir, I think you were talking a little bit about what's happening in Grand Rapids. We just have to realize that our community it's both of those things. We want to address the affordability, but we have to beware of this other animal that's all part of the same, it's part of the same balloon. We're pushing on one edge to get development in, but then we're crowding out the affordable housing. So we're trying to we need all of the expertise, the people coming forward speaking. We need to leverage the expertise of the people on the Planning Commission to try to get this right. And sometimes it means that we take a couple steps forward and we take a couple back. But they all have to be looked at together. And I really believe in this council and also the Planning Commission trying to move forward on all of those things, but doing it, again, in service of you all. You're the people, you decide, so you're, but I hear two values there. It's affordable housing, but watch out what the impact on, of the development that we have going on as well.
I live in a multi-family, a traditional multi-family neighborhood, but I recognize that not everybody wants to do that, and I think we should protect their right to choose a neighborhood that suits their desires and their needs. And I think Grand Haven, part of the problem is we've gone back and forth over the years in the zoning and discouraged duplexes and multifamily structures, and in fact outlawed them by making them non-conforming structures. And it's really been kind of a roller coaster ride for me and for my family because of the zoning changes. I support the zoning changes proposed tonight because they are rolling back rules that would really change the character of a neighborhood. But I also think, as do the others, that there's more work that needs to be done. And one of the things that I would like us to accomplish tonight, what I think needs to be done is the Planning Commission and the City Council need to sit down together with Jennifer and a big map and a pointer, all right? And we need to sort out how could we accommodate some affordable housing while at the same time protecting the rights of people who want to live in single-family neighborhoods. And I don't think there's anything wrong about that. So what I would propose, because I am concerned, one of the taskings that the Planning Commission was given was come back to us before the moratorium expires. And I would like to propose that we extend the moratorium so that while we're trying to figure out what's right for our community, developers don't swoop in and start subdividing. But I will tell you right now that the idea of being able to take two 66-foot lots and turning them into three 44-foot lots, so keeping that 44, to me is an absolute wrong answer, because it means anybody who owns a house and can buy a full city lot next to them can turn it into 3 lots. And particularly if we're then looking at putting duplexes on 3 lots, we take 2 single-family homes and we put 3 duplexes on them. That's the wrong answer for Grand Haven for a variety of reasons, and they will not be affordable. That's the rest of what I need to say, is this isn't happening really in neighborhoods where the property values would make that housing affordable. This is happening in the most high-price neighborhoods we have in the city, and it is changing 100-year-old patterns of living in our town that people were drawn to this town because of them. So I support these changes to the ordinance as a rollback, but I look forward to maybe us getting our act together and giving council more direction, and council coming back to us with a more comprehensive package. I guess I lost sight of the fact that, I mean, we are talking about a town that for decades, maybe hundreds of years, the standard building lot was 66 by 132, and now we are looking at recommendations where it's 44 feet instead of 66 feet, and a substantially smaller square area. So I think I understand why we went in this direction. At least I believe I understand that it was to try to facilitate some opportunity for entry-level homes, and I do think that's important, but I'm not sure that, I don't think we got to the right place. That's kind of where I am. So I think, Jennifer, have you got anything more for us?
No, I'm great. Thank you for the feedback.
All right, and for the council, anybody got any more discussion?
I just want to follow up, Mayor. I mean, I made that suggestion sometime at the Planning Commission meeting when I was chairman, how important I think it is for the City Council and the Planning Commission to get together. I've talked to Robert Grimes, who's the new chair. I think it's very important, especially during this whole development process, the master plan, that we sit down and just have a frank discussion on how we want to take this community. I think that's very, very important. So I thank you for suggesting that.
I would also invite all of you to the master plan kickoff meeting tomorrow with the Planning Commission at 7 p.m. at the Community Center. We're going to be in the Woodbine Room, so we're going to start talking about the process for that. Look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, I think we're, at this point, we've got a motion on the floor to approve the introductory resolution to amend the Grand Haven zoning ordinance. And I think it's been seconded, so all we need to do, I believe, is, will the clerk please call the roll?
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes.
Mayor, would you like me to read each resolution as we come to
It
them?
might be easier if you don't mind.
I don't mind. This one I'm kind of used to, so it's like I'll just make
Okay.
it easier so you don't have to read everything. I'll read it for you.
I like that very much.
Okay. So next item is to execute a partial termination of the 1937 right-of-way and partial termination of the 1946 easement encumbering Robinson Landing subdivision as requested by the Michigan Community Capital, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Discussion? How about we start at Karen's end? You got anything?
Yes, I think, well, not very much. I just think we should execute it. This is obviously on Robinson's Landing, our Attainable Housing Next project. And it's the terms of a unusable easement, or an easement that has really been, is no longer used by the BLP. Dated back in the 1940s. Apparently, when they used to string things across across farmers' fields in order to get electricity to places. So the partial termination of the easement and the right-of-way, I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Ryan, got anything?
I'm just wondering if we can get just a little bit more from Pat on this. Pat, I sent you a question. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not, but the memo that was written on this stated that city attorney had opined that the right-of-way must be terminated by the city council and the easement by a vote of the BLP board and by support by the city council. And I understand that this would be coming back to us in about a month for kind of a second reading. So a portion of this does have to be approved by the BLP board. Is that accurate?
No, sorry, it's for,
I don't
it's
think
for
we
the
have,
city manager who's up on the screen, but he's muted somehow.
we don't have audio for it.
Ah, okay.
Sorry about that. Do you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Pat.
Okay, and I apologize for the awkwardness of my participation by Zoom, but it's unavoidable tonight. It is not necessary to get the BLP to vote on this. We'd like it to go back to the BLP, and there's time between now and the December 20th meeting. And if there are any concerns or adjustments that we need to make to protect property rights that are needed, but we don't see what those could possibly be. There's really no, you can see on the graphic up on the screen, the green portion is what would be terminated here. And there's already BLP utilities along Comstock as well as running up into the site. So all properties are served and all easement needs are satisfied. So there's really no reason to keep this at all, but certainly this little strip. But again, if you introduce this tonight and other objections are brought up that create any concern, we can always address that before the December 20th meeting.
Well, I just really want to be clear on this, Pat, 'cause the memo states something different. So, so the city attorney, is that not written maybe correctly? That the
Well,
city
is this the memo from Derek?
correct?
Okay, and I guess I didn't see that part. I'm looking for that right now.
Okay. Well, it's on the page that's got draft across it, but it looks like it's page 49. And its first paragraph says the city attorney has opined that the charter states the right-of-way must be terminated by the city council and the easement by a vote of the BLP board and support by the council.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct, but I can definitely double check that, Ryan. I'm sorry I didn't catch that earlier.
My concern is that
You know,
if we
that-
vote on the easement portion, are we prohibited from voting on the easement portion before the BLP board does? If that's in fact what they have to do. If it's not, then obviously we're good. And please don't misunderstand me. I think we need to move this along. I think the case has been made that, at this point it doesn't appear that there's I think we're able to, move forward and that there's not a need for them and that they're covered by the new right-of-way. But I just want to make sure that we're absolutely on solid ground here, so.
I apologize for that. I read the same city attorney opinion and didn't come to the same conclusion, so we'll definitely clear that up. But my understanding of the attorney's opinion was that, it was legally sufficient to place this on the agenda tonight to be voted on again on December 20th by the city council. And the only two questions were, are they currently utilizing it, or do they have current plans to utilize that easement area? Is there going to be a need for it? Those are the two questions that we just really need to hear from the BLP. But let me follow up on that. I see where you're talking about in the memo now, and I think that's just a simple misstatement. I apologize.
Well, let's test this. We just had a charter amendment that says that we can call our city attorney instead of having him present. Can we call him real quick and just?
I think he's in a meeting.
Well, he's supposed to be available for us, so that's,
How about a related question, Pat? I thought I read in something, and maybe maybe this is wrong, but is this delaying the Robinson Landing project? And is there a wait period between when we actually approve or consider this? Did I see something about a 30-day wait period, or
We have to
are we okay?
consider it twice.
If we approved it tonight going, forward, and then the BLP could consider that, or if we defer one of these until the BLP has approved, if that makes, if that's a problem for the developer.
And I think I heard the question. I'm trying to hear. It's not coming through real clearly, but yeah, there's a 30-day period when you do anything with property. The first resolution has to sit for 30 days before you can vote again. That's why the December 20th second reading. And the developer tells us that if it's delayed longer than December 20th, it could interrupt their ability to continue working on the project through the winter. They may run low on capital because they've been financing this right along with their own capital and then with a investment from our own community foundation, and that's starting to run a little low. So now they're bringing the commercial financing on board. I can get Ron Bolche on the phone, I believe. He just told me he is available. Would you like me to get him on the phone?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll do that, Your Honor.
Good thinking, Ryan.
Well, yeah, we made a charter amendment, so
That's
it works
right.
out. Yeah. Well, and it's time,
Okay, we'll see how this charter.
Hello.
Hey, Ron, you're on live on City Council 2021.
Okay.
Now that the charter amendment's passed, this is how we're doing it. So the question, we're talking about the easement out on Comstock for the BLP for the electric use.
Yes.
And we had talked about this and that the city council legally could terminate this easement. And I think the two questions you presented were, is the BLP currently using the property, or will they need to in the future? And as far as legal sufficiency, that the city council could abandon the easement without further action by the BLP?
Basically, yes. I mean, we had the timing situation as well, the 30 days, et cetera, but I think you talked about that. So I think the questions were, does it have any plans currently, or does it, or does it have any current use or any plans in place? And those are the questions under section 14.3?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the BLP board would not need to vote on this prior to council taking action?
No, because the easements the easements were not obtained to my knowledge. I think in my email, I assumed that the easements were obtained before the BLP even legally existed. So if the BLP had obtained the easements in the BLP's name on behalf of the city, then the BLP would officially have to be involved. But these easements predate the existence of the BLP, so they are in the name of the city. So that's why I believe it is the city council's call.
Okay, that's what I understood your earlier comment to be. It got a little bit confused in a memo that the staff wrote and got on the agenda. So yeah, this was 1951. It looks like when the city received this easement from Consumers Energy, that was a different one. I'm sorry, it was 1940s that we received it from Consumers, and the BLP, I believe, came into existence in 1959 when the charter was approved.
Right, correct. Okay, yep. So
Okay.
That's why I believe it's the city council's call.
Okay, does anybody on council have further questions for the attorney?
No.
No.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, Ron, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Your Honor, I understand that there is a representative from Michigan Community Capital tonight with you there in the council chamber. If we had any questions of Michigan Community Capital or what their outlook is in the absence of this getting introduced tonight.
I'm guessing he's the guy approaching the podium in a tie and coat. Please,
Hi,
sir,
my name
state
is
your name.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jim Bruinsma, Bruinsma. I'm an attorney in Grand Rapids, 99 Monroe Northwest. And I'm here on behalf of Michigan Community Capital, and really just wanted to thank the city for the assistance you provided to date in this project, and then answer any questions you might have about where we are or why this request is being made.
I think
You
from,
got questions?
I think from my perspective, I think we've been informed of why you need it. It's surely holding up your financing, and, I think that based on what Ron said, I have no problems. I think we should move ahead.
Anybody else? I think we appreciate your time, but I think we're ready to vote, and the only thing I'm going to say is that we are planning a meeting with, we're going to try to get a board-to-board meeting with the BLP, and between now and the second publishing of this resolution, I think we should be able to close the loop with the BLP. If they've got major issues with it, we'll know and you'll know.
Okay, thank
That
you.
sound all right? Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the partial termination of the right-of-way?
We already have a motion and
Oh, we
second.
do, so we do. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Sure. Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes.
Okay. Next item is to adopt the annual exemption option as set forth in the 2011 Public Act 152 for benefit plan coverage year January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
Isn't that what we just did?
Back to it.
Do you want me to start? That's the item D that we moved to,
Okay, we got the wrong thing on the screen,
Yeah.
but I think
Oh.
we're all right. That's okay.
Apologize, I can't correct the PowerPoint on the go.
It's okay.
That's right.
Don't worry. Yes, please start, Karen.
On this one, I guess I had a couple questions I thought we should talk about here. Does anyone know if the reason why this is on the agenda is that we needed to approve it to meet some filing deadline
I'm
tonight?
guessing,
Can I stop you for just a minute? We really should have a motion and second to start the conversation on
sorry.
this.
I'll move it for discussion.
Second?
McLaughlin. Motion by McLaughlin, second by Cummins.
Thank you.
Yes.
May I address you for that question?
Looks like we've got Zach up front. Go ahead.
Great. I'm Zach Van Ostall, the HR manager for the city. In 2011, our legislature passed this law. It's Public Act 152 of 2011, also known as the Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act. And there were several reasons for it. Two of the big reasons was for transparency and to also make sure that governing boards understood the benefits that employees had of their employees. So there's different, every year we have to bring this to council if our insurance premiums are not below the hard caps. So in 2011, the hard caps were set by legislature and they adjust by CPI every year. Our insurance plans have been over that hard cap. The second option is to have an 80-20 option where employees pay 20% of health insurance costs and the employer, the city of Grand Haven, would pay 80% of health insurance. Currently, employees are paying 5%. So at this point in time, we also don't fall under that 80-20 option. And then the third and final option is for city council can just opt out or exempt itself from this, but at least it went before you is what the intent was. And so you were informed of the health insurance premiums.
And Zach, the timing of it, is it because of, it's an annual renewal?
Yep, exactly. So right now, employees are going through open enrollment. We got our health insurance rates about 2 weeks ago. So we got to have this meeting and this passed by council prior to January 1st.
Anything further there, Karen?
Yeah, I guess, I apologize, I'm kind of new to this. I would like to see in the future just more background because we don't have, you've provided some of the CPI, that our insurance premiums are growing faster than CPI. But we don't have, any multi-year data here in the packet. It's just sort of the current, what it's going to be, and it's really hard to have, really do your fiduciary responsibility in looking at all this with just sort of today's, numbers. But I do understand that this is part of a broader benefits package for all of our people, and I'm okay. I just wish we had more information before it came in a agenda. As a new person, some of you may know a lot more, but what was included in the packet was a little bit light.
Have you seen it before, Ryan?
I'm sure we did, and I don't recall.
Okay, fair enough.
But,
Yep. Okay, do you have any reservations or any comments?
No, I don't. I think, Karen's point is you're learning. There's, seeing the historical trend lines and, what our health insurance is doing is certainly important as new members. I remember a couple of years ago there being some issues with us kind of exceeding our expected costs, and we had a lot of discussion about how do we keep our healthcare costs in line, and I know that's a continuing piece of work that are part of your work that you're doing. More information the better to make sure that everyone's up to speed would be good.
Okay, Kevin, anything?
I just got to get my arms around this, Zach, I'm sorry. You give us three scenarios, cap, 80/20, and opt-out. Opt-out obviously cost the city an extra roughly $160,000. Is that how I'm reading this?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Why did we choose the opt-out years ago and not make sure that, saving the city $160,000? Is it negotiated? Give me an answer and I'll move on.
No, definitely, it is $160,000, but that's also the employee share. So this is the total cost. Employees will share 5% of that $160,000. And so it is, as you mentioned, Councilmember Lowe, that CPI or that healthcare costs have exceeded CPI year after year. So we're continually fighting that battle. This year we saw a 6% increase in health insurance costs. We do budget for a 10% increase, and so we're trying to fight that.
And I just wanted to commend you too. I think that I see how you're trying to manage the costs through a funding, and so I don't want to discourage you at all. It was hard to look at that we were over the cap and without understanding a little bit more, more background there. So that's a really, it's a really good thing.
I'm good.
Kathy?
I'm good.
Anything else?
Yep. I had the same reservations, and I kind of sorted it out, and I think it's good to look at. I think that I salute you, I think, and everybody on the staff that is weighing in, exercising, and doing all the things that are designed to keep healthcare costs down. And I think one of the things that's pointed out in the memo is by self-insuring, which scared me until I sorted that out as well. We keep costs down generally. So I think all of those are good things, and I'm ready to vote. You guys ready?
And I just wanted to add, it's the variability with such a small population, Your Honor. It's tough. We are going to see some variations, but that's why I'd like to see a little more multi-year data.
That's a valid point. And if you could, Zach, note it, and next time you're up in front of us, you'll get the same grilling if it's not here.
Will do.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Could the clerk please call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes.
Okay, now we're to unfinished business. And the first item is to approve a final resolution vacating a portion of Waverly Avenue right-of-way between the railroad tracks and 816 Waverly Avenue, just west of Verhoek Street, pursuant to Grand Haven Code of Ordinances, Chapter 32, Article 4, with the provision that if the owner were to sell the land within the right-of-way at a future date, the city would receive the proceeds from that portion of the sale, and that a 33-foot wide easement must be provided in the same location as the current right-of-way for the water main. The Planning Commission and the administration recommend approval.
Can I
Make
get
a
a motion
motion.
in support?
I'll make a motion.
Any
Second?
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Lowe. Any discussion?
No, this has already been.
This is the second one,
The second.
second time around?
Yeah, I'm
All
good
right.
with it.
Could the clerk please call the roll?
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes, sorry.
that's okay, McNally.
Yes. And I'd just like to note for the record, I'm glad you had to read that, Linda, not me.
Oh. Sometimes I trip over my tongue, but I can say it. Okay, next item is to approve a buy-sell agreement with CL Lakewood to transfer ownership of the diesel plant property at a sale price of $1 million for the redevelopment of the property as a restaurant and event center, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion on this one? Motion to support?
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Okay.
I'll
A
second.
Good. All right. You want to start, Kevin?
Sure. I had looked at this project actually months ago. And, you know, the first thing that came to mind is that we had put I would say, an artificial price on this land and building at $1 million. And I had, frankly, even before I decided to run for city council, I had written an op-ed that said we should really have a full-blown appraisal done to tell us what this building is really worth. And, you know, that has not been done. I really believe that we need that appraisal. We have to understand, for the sake of the community, you know, what is the real price of, you know, what is the real value of this building with the building on it and with the building demolished. Now, I know everybody wants to save the building, and I'm not questioning that, but I would like to see an appraiser really take a hard look at that for us, because I think that, you know, maybe that building's worth $5 million. I mean, you know, I think some of us, you know, when we're talking about the rezoning, you know, there's a building there's actually a single-family house up the street that sold for $600,000, and they're building 6 condos on it, averaging $1 million. And, you know, you would think that that building is worth more than $1 million. So I really think that we should postpone the decision on the diesel project until we two things, that we understand what the environmental concerns really are, and if there is any, you know, let's know what that number is, and I really would like to know what the value of the property is.
Karen?
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. I think we missed a step just in terms of, before you dispose of any asset, an appraisal, particularly property, would be appropriate. So I'm with you on that, Kevin. I think the other concern that I have is around the parking situation, even though it is, and I don't believe from a process perspective this has gone through the Planning Commission yet, but there are a number of issues about the planned use, and I thought we kind of got ahead of ourselves just a little bit. So if we could just back up and make sure that we've, some of the issues being, I think you're already aware of, the slope that's not ADA compliant, and a number of other, the distance that we would be, I guess, providing some variances. So I think we need to be very transparent, coming back to council, but transparent with our citizens about what we're going to do, what we would be doing to make that work in that buy-sell agreement. And so proceeding with it without having those two things, sort of the Planning Commission, where you stand on that, and of course the appraisal, I would like to back up and get those two things.
Ryan?
Well, I think it's good that we are here and postponed a decision on this from a couple weeks ago, because we do have a lot of new council members here, and so it's important to take, you know, those thoughts and perspectives into consideration here. You know, as the buy-sell agreement stands today, it's the same as, you know, it was a couple weeks ago. I did send Pat a number of items that I had concerns with on it. And my understanding is that Greg Holcomb, the consultant, was kind of working with the proposed developer on addressing some of those concerns. I had some concerns with the language about the right of first refusal, and whether it was strong enough to guarantee that the building would be saved if the developer were to go forward and actually own the property. I had some concerns with how Exhibit B was written, and that there was a lot of broad latitude to kind of add some extra structures that may not exactly be known to council today. And I had some concerns about some of the contingencies and earnest money amount and the time to build. We're looking at a pretty lengthy time period to get started. So, I think, as we went through the process before, I think, there was a lot of comments on the survey. I think there's a lot of very strong sentiment from the community that they really want this building to be saved, and that, the community certainly has to understand that is likely to come at a cost. And so I don't have any concerns with a commercial appraisal, and that way at least the council has an idea of what it is or isn't worth with the building on the property or without. But the community, certainly would need to know that, hey, there's a cost to saving a building such as this, and I think that's what we're getting with at least the developer that's come forward. We do have, I think, a good developer and some good options, and we're lucky to have that. It's a pretty complex project, and so it's kind of balancing out, keeping that interest with the developer that is willing to work to save the property, and reuse and repurpose it, and finding the right uses for it. So if that process involves the planning commission taking a look at it to make sure that they have some comfort level with the proposed uses and some of the work that needs to be done to work with some of the certainly parking issues that are certainly very real, I don't have a concern with doing that.
Okay. I actually came in tonight prepared to vote for this, with the understanding that there are a lot of issues, and I certainly wasn't hard over, and I can see the point every council member has made. I think our community is going to face a very difficult choice on this one, because I suspect monetarily that property is worth significantly more than $1 million. And I think in the end what you have to sort out in your soul of a community is what is preservation of that beautiful historic building worth. So, I guess you can't really make an informed choice about what's the right thing to do for our city without understanding what you give up. So I support postponing the decision, and I have to say that if it's up to me and I'm leaning, I would lean towards preserving the building. And I also will say that the developer that the last council chose, to me, had the best plan for preserving the building that was of the four that were presented, and also that in their portfolio they had turned similar buildings into incredible. One was a brew pub in Florida, and they had multiple different beautiful, historic, cool industrial buildings that they turned into great things for the town in which it was located. And if we don't end up with this developer, I hope we can find someone who has a similar ability. I spent probably 6 hours today reading at least 80 pages of comments from the community. And most of them were one-liners, and some of them were like 6 or 8-liners, but the community was filled with all kinds of exceptional ideas about what to do with this building. The problem is funding. We really, if we try to keep this building and do something with it internally, we really are going to be challenged financially to develop the building locally. So I appreciate many of those excellent ideas, and I agree with some of them, but I think that this is all gonna require a balance and sort of the wisdom of Solomon, and I'm looking around thinking, these guys are as good as we're gonna get. So, anyway, so we had a motion to approve, but it sounds like we want a motion to postpone.
Yes, could I, if I could, I'd like to make a motion to postpone any decision on the diesel project until the following is done. An independent appraisal is completed by a Michigan licensed commercial appraiser. I would ask Pat to try to give us quotes from three appraisers so that we could choose one to complete the analysis.
I would ask Pat to try to give us.
I think we should also, I know that the developer, and I think in unison with the county and the state, is putting together some environmental reports. I think we should take a look at those too. And the last thing is part of the motion, I would really like the planning commission to take a look at this before it goes any further. I think there's reasons why. So that's my motion. I think we should just postpone it until we're able to get both the value of the land as it sits here today, and as if it's in fact vacant land, so that we can have that as you said, Mayor, so that we can really decide which way to go. That's my motion.
Can I?
I'll second that long motion.
Sorry.
Karen, can I discuss for 1 second?
Oh, sure.
Are you also, do you want to include in the motion that we ask planning commission to look at this?
Yeah,
It's in it?
yeah,
Okay,
yes.
yes, all
You
right.
get that?
I have it to postpone indefinitely until there's an independent appraisal. I gotta get more of the wording from you.
Okay, I got it
But
here.
an independent appraisal, environmental reports, and have the planning commission review it.
Okay. Karen, you second?
I second that.
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Lowe. Do you have something else to say, Ryan?
Well, I did see just, Your Honor, that Pat unmuted. I don't know if he.
Pat, are you
has
up
anything
there?
that he would, as a staff, want to give us some thoughts, or? Give us some thoughts, or?
Yeah, I just turned on my camera and wanted you to see me nodding that I did understand exactly where you were going. And I do think that this will. I just turned on my camera. And oops, sorry. I did understand exactly where you were going. That was confusing. I'm listening to the audio on Facebook and watching on my computer. I apologize for that. But yeah, I heard where we're going with this, and I really think taking these directions, these three contingencies, back to CL Lakewood and talking to them about it, I'm sure we can get some feedback. And the items, Ryan, that you had pointed out, we're discussing those things with the potential buyer, and I do think we can get some movement on several of those points that you brought up. We just haven't gotten to that point yet, so I'll be able to bring up, the right of first refusal to ensure that we're going to preserve that building, because that's the whole point of why we're going to these lengths. And looking at that time to build, if that's something we can constrict that back a little bit. So I think what you're proposing tonight is very workable going forward.
Okay, good. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes.
And next item is reports by city council.
Want to start at your end, Karen?
No.
No? Kevin, can you start for us?
This is obviously our first full council meeting. And at this point in time, I'm glad to be here. It really has been, it's been quite an experience over the last 6 months, and I'm sure I'll have a lot more to report to the community. But right now, I'm happy.
Ryan?
Yeah, I missed your swearing-in ceremony last Monday.
Memorable.
Because I was, I was adventuring in Iceland, so I missed it. But I want to, officially, welcome each of you to the city council. I really, I've obviously started my work with you tonight. I'm not even looking forward to it. We've started, right? We've gotten to work, but I've appreciated talking with each of you briefly. Mayor, I think we're planning on meeting soon to kind of get to know each other more as well. And kudos to you for running your first meeting. It's not easy to be in the driver's seat. It's really not.
I appreciate your help.
So, and you've done a fine
Up
job
the good
here
work.
for your, you know, it's a team effort, right? And no meeting's the same. But nice job on that. I look forward to continuing to work with each of you. Welcome aboard. And I know you've all been working hard. We've had a lot thrown at us just for this first meeting of yours. And so you've all come in quite prepared. We've had the full gamut of closed sessions and pretty meaty items to discuss tonight. And I'm impressed with how prepared everybody is. So thank you.
Karen?
I really don't have anything to report, but I've been giving it a lot of thought. There was a lot of preparation for this evening, but one of the things that I want to use in this time is not so much telling you where I went this week or what I had for lunch. I want to tell you some things that I've learned that I think, in the interest of transparency, that we want to make sure you also know. And I know each of us, Mayor McNally has us each working on some various initiatives and working with Pat, specifically Pat, in support of you and your team, Pat. And so when there are things to share, I want to make sure that I get some of those questions that you've been asking us out and use the report and sort of our time of discovery to share that with you. So again, thank you for your trust and your support, and hopefully a little patience before you start hearing a whole lot back from us.
And all I've got to say is, again, thank you, Linda Brown, for starting us off right and for keeping this town on its toes all these years, and I think particularly for officiating or overseeing the elections, because it's an enormous job and it's an important job, and it means a lot to a lot of people. So that's all I got.
Okay, next on the agenda is report by city manager.
Pat?
Thank you, Your Honor, and City Council, and I must say this is absolutely surreal. I don't think I've ever missed a meeting in that room with the City Council since 2003. This is the first time I haven't been there with you, so it's very unusual for me, and I'm doing my best to stay directly plugged in. So forgive me if I've been a little bit slow on the uptake tonight. First thing I want to talk about is the aviation fuel at the airport. I provided you with a written explanation of where we're at with that system out at the airport. We decided early in 2021 to move forward with some improvements to the Jet A tank, which is the jet fuel that was being used by Skydive Grand Haven, one of our newer tenants, to do their operation. And we had done a business plan, the projected payback of about 2 years. As the vendors showed up and started working on things, as often is the case, they found a number of things when they got under the hood and started looking at both tanks, both the Jet A and the regular aviation fuel tank. And Earl Bears decided to make some improvements to the rest of the system to keep us running efficiently and effectively. I think it was a good call that he made. However, it did increase the cost of the system. So I just wanted to give you a report tonight, again, in the interest of transparency, so people know where their money is going and what we're spending it on, that we did end up investing a bit more than we expected in the improvements to the fuel tank farm there at the airport. On the plus side, that 2-year payback still holds true. We sold more Jet A fuel than we had expected originally, so we still expect that full investment will be recovered by the end of next year, 2022. So it's kind of good news, bad news, or I guess bad news, good news. Bad news, we ended up spending a little more money than we initially set out to do. Good news, we're selling more fuel than we thought, so it still will cover itself within that 2-year window. So wanted to get that information out there. And then the next bit is on these trolleys. We did get several proposals in, and I would welcome any ideas you might have. I could certainly sit down with some senior staff and come up with some recommendations to come back to you with, or if you would like to weigh in on those decisions. I know you guys got the memo that I sent out, so I'm just kind of looking to you to see how you'd like to proceed. I didn't want to presume anything. You've got a couple from food purveyors, a couple from retailers, and one from a The CVB, they're all quite different, and depending on what your value setup is, but we just wanted to make them available locally to provide a little pop and sizzle downtown this next year, a little something different. Maybe we go with one retailer and one food purveyor. You see the amount that the different bidders proposed. So I'd kind of look to you guys to maybe let me know how you'd like me to proceed. And unfortunately, right now I can't see you, so I don't know if you're smiling and nodding or frowning and shaking your head.
We're wearing masks, so it would be hard to tell anyway, Pat. But do you want that individually? Do you want that collectively? How would you like that delivered? Just some feedback individually? Or do you want us to talk- do you want us to?
That'd be fine.
Do you want us to discuss it here, because that's also a possibility?
That'd be fine.
Do you want us to discuss it here, because that's also?
Yeah, maybe a little discussion here tonight, Your Honor, just to set
Okay.
me straight on the right path.
Did you guys get a chance to look at the, there were, as I recall, 6 candidates. 3 were local businesses and 3 were local nonprofits. And my first cut on it would be, I'd probably pick the nonprofits, but that's, that's the way I would look at it. So, and of the nonprofits, I didn't have a strong opinion.
I have looked at it. I'm kind of have gone back and forth with it. I'm really kind of intrigued by the whole surf shop and what they could do. I thought that was pretty cool, actually. And both the ones that we receive from Oddside and Long Road. I mean, Oddside obviously is willing to pay substantial the most for the for the trolley.
Kevin, could you tell people who are the, because I don't have the memo with me.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Tell them who the.
It's Lake Effect is one, the surf shop, Oddside.
Lake Effect is it's not the winery. Lake Effect is a food kitchen that.
Yes.
That employs,
Yeah.
I think it's emotionally
Yeah.
disabled young people.
Yeah. It'd be kind of interesting, Pat, to talk to Lake Effect and the surf shop, because the surf shop said they aren't quite ready to start, actually selling any type of food, where Lake Effect is willing to do that.
The catering, right.
Yeah.
So there's Lake Effect, which was one of the nonprofits.
Yeah.
And then,
Surf shop.
Surf Shop,
In the,
which had, just so you know, a beautiful picture of one of the owners of the surf shop. They were married and rode this, they wanted one particular trolley because they rode the trolley on their to their wedding. And they had a picture of them in wedding
Right.
gown.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That was cool.
The only other, and this is nothing against Oddside or Long Road, but I just thought that the CVB kind of brought something that could go throughout the community and really get visitors involved, and I just thought it's something we should consider. That's it.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, these are very different. We've got 2 that are about beer, right?
Or distilled spirits.
Or distilled
Yep,
spirits, right, sorry. And then the Grand Haven Convention and Visitors Bureau, that was interesting, but it's so different than the rest. And like you, I was like, well, there's a return to the community. I actually thought.
Kind of across the hospitality
Across.
index, right.
But as reading reading the proposal, I wasn't sure if they wanted it so much as to, if they knew some of the other people that were going for it. I think they just wanted, us to preserve that, and they could find a way to, use it. So I wasn't really sure. This remade was particularly interesting to me because it's an East End business.
I agree with that as well.
Actually could use the mobile piece that in the downtown area and bring and actually help promote some of the other East End businesses. So again, rather than investing in all downtown businesses looking to spread the wealth a little bit, that kind of appealed to me. But again, and I liked the sustainability, piece of it. I think it really reuse. So purposes, as I said, other than us kind of giving you a little bit of 2 cents, there's some it really kind of comes down to some strategic priorities. Obviously, the entrepreneurial spirit of some of these appeals to me because I think we do a lot of big business. So that's just my 2 cents.
Ryan?
Well, I remember receiving these right before I was headed out of the country, and it's on my list. I think Pat wanted us to do like this ranking chart, and so to be honest with you, I haven't dove into all the details on these, but I remember, and I'm obviously tonight still thinking of, we're lucky to have so many places that have interest in reusing and repurposing these. And the Gerards that own the surf shop was really interesting that they got married, and used one of the trolleys that's actually, up.
They
So-
said, we only want this trolley, we
That was
don't
pretty
want that trolley,
interesting,
because
so-
that's the one that took us to our wedding.
Yes, so I will get back to Pat
we'll get-
soon with my ranking.
I'm not sure whether that's helpful, Pat, because we're going in all directions, and I apologize for that.
But, I'm not.
No, that,
I mean, I think, Pat, that you should probably put the staff together and, see what you can, see what you have for recommendations. if
Okay.
That's okay with everyone.
Sure.
no, that was very helpful, and I'll look to the, to your next meeting, we'll talk again, and I encourage you.
Okay. Are we done with trolleys? For the evening, at least? I think so.
I'm sorry?
I said, are we done with trolleys for the evening?
Well, I just want to encourage the public, if they want to look at these proposals, they're all in the packet. They could look at them tonight, just in the interest of transparency. If the public wants to read the whole packet and see what each of these places propose, they can do that. We'll leave that packet up all through the next 2 weeks so they can see that.
Okay. I think everybody got it. All right, this is the final call, second opportunity call to the audience. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address, and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time.
Hello, my name's Jim Hagan, 400 Lake. I'd like to thank the council for looking into the diesel plan in more detail, looking into the financials. I would encourage you to even expand it to look at the business case of the 300-person event center with very limited parking. And also, I'd like to encourage planning to look into the parking in more detail, because living on Lake, I can tell you right now, people park in front of the driveways even and I know up at the Y in Mulligan's Hollow, those parking lots are packed. So I would encourage you to think about the summer days when an event center is used for weddings, etc., and encourage people to actually look at how the parking is going to be reserved and what kind of enforcement it's going to take and what kind of irate people are going to be there wanting that parking. I mean, we're talking, these projects get so ahead of themselves. Why don't we have a stage gate process where we actually look at these things, ahead of time and have these things, check them off, look at the parking, look at the distances, look at ADA, look at how things are going to be reserved. I know people have this passion for the building, but, we have to look at this as a project, just not let the desire to retain a building give every other, thing a pass. So, thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Ron Valerius, 5907 Leisure South. I'd like to go to part 2 of my presentation from earlier. I would encourage the board here to, as you talked about earlier, reviewing your master plan. And here are some suggestions that I would like to make, and then you can decide what you like to do with that. If you know of Elger Heights in Grand Rapids, which you may or may not, it is the #1 internet hit in all of the United States for real estate, which I find very, very interesting. And what makes this area so successful is that they have 45-foot lots, little bungalows. This is what I'm talking about as far as affordable housing. Take your lots, reduce them to 45 feet, have a developer come in and build a bungalow where they would finish off one bedroom on the main floor. As the family grows, they would finish up the option of the upstairs, or you would put some daylight windows in the basement so that they don't have to move. And that they would have the option of building a garage or not building a garage. A lot of people say the number one problem in real estate is the down payment. Now, I don't know if Grand Haven knows this or not. Your problem is solved. MISTA has a program for first-time home buyers that will give them $10,000 towards their down payment. Grand Haven has the same problem as any other major city, and that is these companies cannot keep their employees there. Why not develop a program where you would partner with factories, the city, the developer, and say, how about we build a community of affordable housing with tax incentives? We have the down payment and work with foundations and put the money all together. And so now the company doesn't say, if you work for my company for 2 years, we'll give you a $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 bonus. Why? Because it costs them a whole lot more money to keep training all these people that keep jumping from job to job for 50 cents. How about come out for the whole entire state of Michigan and say the place to live is Grand Haven? We understand the issue of affordable housing, and we have a plan in place, and here are the options for you. That's how you're going to solve your problem, by putting a team of people within the community and work this out, and I hope that you consider that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Lori View, 201 Woodlawn, Grand Haven. I guess I'm not understanding why somebody from Grand Rapids is so interested in making affordable housing in Grand Haven, maybe to get it out of Grand Rapids, I'm not sure. But one thing you guys need to keep in mind when you do planning, and you're planning whatever tomorrow and future, is I think a lot of the reason there's not affordable housing in the city of Grand Haven is the taxes. I mean, I can tell you, I pay $5,500 a year for taxes in the city of Grand Haven. You go just south of Robbins Road, and it cuts it in about half. So you're talking $500 a month just in taxes. So if you're looking for affordable housing, it's not in the city. I mean, everybody thinks that, you know, it sounds like this grandiose thing and great thing, but it's not. And every city is experiencing the same issue with the price of housing going up. And a lot of it has to do with COVID, and people can stay at home, work from home now. So these people come in from Chicago and these big cities, and they want to live in this great place called Grand Haven. And it is a great place. But I'm telling you, we're going to ruin it if we keep reducing the lot size and multifamily housing. It's going to ruin it, and people aren't going to think it's so great. And like I said, I'm not against affordable housing, but I think we need to look at it a lot different than the way we are today. So, and I appreciate the change that's been made on the council. I'm excited to see all the changes that are going to happen. You guys talked about all the transparency. I think that's great. We need that in the city. I think a lot's been going on that is kind of behind the scenes and people didn't know about it. So I appreciate it.
Steve again from 1540 Penoyer, and I like a lot what you're talking about. I'd just like to expand a little bit, because one of the thoughts that like drives me is let's take a look at the Prano Pub. The Prano Pub. That's like one of the crown jewels and one of the most famous little spots in Grand Haven. And if you operated totally on what I keep calling this 1980s style of zoning, that would be illegal. That would not be allowed. So I think it'd be very valuable to be considering a hierarchy of scales, being able to have small lots, small houses, and big houses on big lots. Because to me, that patchwork quality is what makes a community charming and interesting and fun. I just recently, when I was in Holland, I only think it's a couple years old, they have a development not very far from downtown with, I think, about a half a dozen, maybe 6 or 8 tiny little houses. Each one of those houses is only maybe 550 square feet. And they sold really quickly. They don't have garages. You just have a little spot. I don't even know if they have a spot for one car. And I think it's been very, very successful. And it's like, I just think that makes a community richer when you have all those options, and it helps address those issues like aging in place, so that, because I can tell you, I've seen a lot of these older men really get focused a lot on setting up the family affairs so that when they kick the bucket, their wife isn't overwhelmed with the adjustment that she's inevitably going to have to go through when you lose a spouse that you've been married to for 40 years. A lot of these women cannot get along on their own. They have to move out of their house. So, just some thoughts. Thank you.
Coming back, Jim? Okay.
I'd like to, Jim Hagan, 400 Lake, I'd like to make a comment on the affordable housing. I find it really odd how people are drawing these lines saying, this is the city, this is not the city, this is what we have to do here, but boy, that's not the city there. Look at where, we have the affordable housing going on Robinson Landing. How far is that from all the apartments that are built between Robbins Road and Comstock? It's further away from the heart of the city than all that development. Why are we always saying it has to be within the city limits when a whole lot of development is right on the edge of the city and our affordable housing is further away? I think we're looking at it too parochial. Let's look at our community. Let's not say Grand Haven has to do this. Let's say our community should be doing things. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I think this meeting's adjourned. Am I good, Linda?
You're good.
Last time I hit it hard enough that it wasn't Chris.